You're about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOCDALI. I woke up this morning. I am in so much pain. My body is just aching. My back, my knees, my joints. No, not the flu. Not the flu. I hung up Christmas lights yesterday. And I did not realize what a blood sport that is. I gotta tell you, I do it every year. I just love putting up the lights, and we got the little icicles, and because of Hanukkah, we do blue and white, and then we got snowman, and we got, it's fun, but oh my gosh, I hurt so bad. Oh, the slipping and the falling and the yelling at the dog and chasing the dog because the dog wanted to run outside, no leash, and I told the dog to get the leash back on. She's out of her flipping mind to be no leash, and then the other dog comes. And I'm hoarse because of all the yelling. And then my husband almost falls from the tree multiple times because I told him to get up in a tree. And I know you could hire somebody, but somebody died last year in Escondido, California, because he was hanging up the lights and there was a power supply nearby and he electrocutes himself. And it was somebody who was hired to hang up lights. I could not live with myself if I hired somebody who died putting up my lights. I couldn't do that. So I'd rather be me and my husband, I guess. Now, nobody should be dying, but thousands upon thousands of people injure themselves every year. I had 3 patients yesterday, slips and falls, sprains, scrapes, cuts, nail gun injuries. Listen, it's an important time. It's also, though, very, it can be very, very frustrating. Now, I like doing the lights because it's for the neighborhood. I could decorate the inside of the house, but the outside of the house is so the neighborhood, because we got a lot of kids and all that. They come up and they like to see it. And so I like to do that. Plus, but I got to tell you, though, nothing screams Jew more than decorating your house poorly. And I mean, everybody knows that we're the Jewish people in the neighborhood, because it's just the lights. You could tell, we've only been doing this the last few years, and we haven't been doing this our whole lives. And so but it's getting there. It's getting there. Although I got to tell you, if you want to limit your frustration, for the love of the Lord, please check the lights before you put them up. So remember, I got busted by the Homeowners Association a few months ago because my Christmas lights were still up. It wasn't the outside. I have a little atrium in the front yard. In the front, you open the door and there's a little atrium before you get to the house door. And so I had all these beautiful lights on the plants, and they were perfect. They lit perfectly. And I'm like, you know what? Why don't I leave these here? They aren't necessarily Christmas lights now. They're lights. They're in the atrium. They're not seen outside. The homeowners Gestapo shouldn't have a problem with this, and they're perfect. They light, they're symmetrically and geometrically choreographed and all organized on the okay, well, I had to take them down because they were fining me $100 a week. I don't know how they knew there's busybodies that run around the neighborhood. So I take them down, and then yesterday I spent an hour and a half putting them back up. And when I take the plug to plug it in, nothing. For some reason, the lights just don't work. And now I got to take that all down and go and get new lights. I am so anyway, I'm frustrated. And then we got these little little icicle thingies. I think they're like icicles. And so we want to put them in the tree, but I can only reach the bottom part of the tree. And I can't use the ladder because we have very little front yard. You don't really get a lot of big yards in Vegas. So our front yard is really, really small. And there's a hill, so I can't so I told my husband, let me just climb the tree. He goes, no, I'll do it, because he's all macho. Like, I don't mind climbing the tree. He's like, I'll do it. So he's climbing the tree, and he's on the branches, and he's trying to put the lights, and it's not enough. And then I realized I forgot to string the lights along the branches. And so I go, oh, honey, we got to take all that down because I wanted to branch the light. I wanted to light the branches first. Then I'm teaching my son about the trachea and then the bronchioles, or the bronchi and then the bronchioles. So we wanted to put the lights. I told him on the bronchi and some of the bronchioles and the little alveoli or the little leaves. And so, I gave him a little pulmonary lesson with that one. But here's the thing, guys. I was ready to call 911, right? You want to make sure you have, you're ready for emergencies. Don't just have somebody do the lights by themselves. Make sure somebody's watching. Number 2 is don't do stupid. If you can't put them up on the roof, then that's okay. There's a lot of different ways to decorate around. And like we have this big, like 8-foot or 10-foot snowman. You could add height. And we have an upstairs balcony. So I strung more icicle lights on that. So there's a way to get height if you can't afford, gosh, it's expensive to hire somebody to do them. Or you don't want to have somebody put them up. Dress for the weather. I was in flip-flops. And that's not easy to chase the dog that's running around and getting the rocks and slipping and sliding. Wear good shoes. Make sure you have a work belt, a utility belt, so you're not sitting there trying to reach. Make sure you have your cords and your extension cords and your timer ready to go. Because what I was doing is I was putting up the lights and I was throwing the cord going, okay, we'll just deal with that later. So now we have all these outlets and there's no place to put them. All right. Which was kind of stupid. And so you got to not trip. A lot of times I wanted to see if the lights work. So I connected the cord with another cord. And so now it's a limbo. It hits limbo height, the cord. And so then one of my other family members turns around and then trips on that. And then I was yelling because I wanted to look at the lights, and now they messed up the cord. And they're on the ground, complaining. I'm like, it's your fault. Okay, I told you guys I was lighting this up. But anyway, you got to be careful because of that. So listen, hanging Christmas lights and Hanukkah lights should not be a blood sport. With the Hanukkah, the Hanukkah, we use, candles and fire. I'm kind of limited because with my kids and the cats love that. And then they catch themselves on fire and then the whole house goes on fire. So it's the holiday time, but be careful. I got to take some ibuprofen. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away. We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So I keep being asked, is vaping the safer choice than smoking? And the answer is a little nuanced because smoking is bad. I mean, lung cancer is still the number one death, even if the number one cancer. Lung cancer is the number one cancer of all cancers out there still. Even though we've been decreasing smoking, fewer people are now, going to tobacco. They're going more towards vaping. Still, lung cancer is the number one cause of death for cancer. Heart disease is still the number one cause of mortality, health-related mortality. But in terms of cancer, lung cancer is number one. And so many people have been going to vaping because they're saying, well, it's not tobacco. So if it's not tobacco, it's safer. Well, the problem I've had with that is if you were using vaping to get off tobacco, and it was only temporary, I would support you. But if you were unfortunately using vaping to just, I guess, have a new habit, that was a problem. And the reason why is we were starting to see early on that there were issues with heating up the vape liquid, the formaldehyde, and the other chemical components that happen when you heat up a liquid. You also got the metal contaminants from the coil. And so these are, not to mention food colorings and food preservatives and food flavorings that are not supposed to be on the delicate lung lining. So vaping, in a way, may not have the same risks as tobacco, but I do believe it's risky. And so we recommend, we don't necessarily tell people to go and vape. You're not going to see that recommendation. But what we do say is, look, we want to get you off smoking. Okay? And there are many different avenues to do that. We have hotlines, we have of nicotine patches, we have products that can help you. But the thing is we still have to deal with the nicotine addiction. And so doctors are very reluctant to tell you to use certain deliveries. We have to, unfortunately, be very careful about what you're using in terms of getting off your smoking because of the addiction to nicotine, which we're going to be talking about a little bit. Our next guest is here, Dr. David Tom Cook, fellow of the American College of Surgeons and member of the ACS Patient. This is a great segment because when we spoke about lung cancer and how the guidelines in the USPSTF finally suggested that we could CAT scan to screen for lung cancer, this was huge and this was so life-saving. The problem is only 1 in 5 Americans who are eligible to get this screening do it, which means 4 in 5 are being left out. So we're really, really grateful for our next guest, Dr. David Tom Cook. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dahlia, for inviting me.
Wow. So lung cancer is beatable if we catch it early. Talk to us about why this screening is so important.
Yes, as you pointed out, lung cancer is the number one cancer killer in the United States. It kills more men and more women than any other cancer, including breast cancer, prostate cancer, and colon cancer. Yet, just like we have screening for mammography for breast cancer and screening for colon cancer and even prostate cancer, we have screening for lung cancer with low-dose CT scan. But only 18% of Americans who are eligible for lung cancer screening actually get screened.
It's interesting. Back in the 90s when I was at training and I was doing my oncology training, the doctor told me to chest x-ray all patients who were previous smokers twice a year. And I asked, I go, why couldn't we CAT scan? He said insurance won't cover it. So chest x-ray them twice a year, and insurance might not cover that. We've gone a long way thanks to doctors like you that have been advocating for this. But unfortunately the word I don't think has gotten out. And maybe it's because people don't have a primary care. Maybe many people use telemedicine instead. And so they're just kind of getting their more urgent needs met. Talk about who qualifies for screening.
Yeah, lung cancer screening with low-dose CT scan looks at folks who are considered the highest risk for developing lung cancer. So those are folks who have a smoking history, who have smoked 20 pack years history. Now, what is a pack year? You take the number of packs per day you smoked times the number of years you smoked. So if you smoke 1 pack per day for 20 years, that's 20 pack years. If you smoke 2 packs per day for 10 years, that's 20 pack years. You're age 50 or older, and you're a current smoker, or if you quit smoking, you quit within 15 years. If you hit all 3 of those categories, you're eligible for lung cancer screening with low-dose CT scan.
And it is so easy. It's painless. It's amazing. And many people think, well, you know what? I'm not having symptoms, so I'm good. Symptoms, you could start having signs of cancer picked up on CT before the symptoms. But talk to my listeners about the signs and symptoms that they should be aware of.
Yeah, just as you pointed out, lung cancer screening with low-dose CT scan is super easy. So the scan itself takes less than 5 minutes. You don't have to take off your clothes into a hospital gown. There's no IVs or pokes for labs. It's up to you if you want to take off your shoes. The scan looks like a donut. You lie down, you slide within the scanner, you slide back out. It's less than 5 minutes, so it's extremely easy. Now, there are some symptoms that are associated with lung cancer or can be associated. That includes unintentional weight loss, a persistent cough that won't go away, a productive cough, so a cough that produces phlegm or blood, new hoarseness, or new difficulty breathing. Those could be signs and symptoms for lung cancer. However, there are plenty of folks who are walking around right now with small, tiny, early-stage lung cancers, and those cancers may not be associated with any symptoms at all. That's why lung cancer screening with low-dose CT scan is so important, because it detects those early-stage lung cancers that have no symptoms but have the best chance for cure.
Amen. We're speaking to Dr. David Tom Cook, professor and founding chief of the Division of General Thoracic Surgery at UC Davis, physician and chief of the UC Davis Comprehensive Cancer Center, and member of the American College of Surgeons Patient Education Committee. I get a lot of questions about secondhand smoke and thirdhand smoke. You live with the smoker, or kids are picking it up, from the drapes and furniture. Talk to us about those people who don't smoke and their risk.
Yeah, what we're finding in this country that there are more and more young people developing cancer, and lung cancer is no exception. So there are other risk factors for developing lung cancer. First of all you need to develop lung cancer are lungs. But there are other risk factors. So a family history for lung cancer, specifically first-degree relative, so brother, sister, mother. There's occupational exposure like asbestos and other particulate matter that you might be breathing in. Lung pollution is a risk factor for developing lung cancer. There are things such as elemental gas, such as radon, which are risk factors for developing lung cancer. If you feel that you fall into any of these categories, including the smoking categories that we talked about, or you feel that a family member or friend or loved one falls into these categories, I encourage you to talk to your doctor and say, am I at risk for developing lung cancer, and should I be screened or tested in some way?
Absolutely. We're coming up on the end soon. Any new treatments that you'd like to tell our listeners about?
Yeah, if we look at cancer cures in this country, so people get cured for lung cancer. The cure rate has been increasing in the last 15 to 20 years compared to decades before. Why is that? It's because of wonderful innovations in the way we treat patients with lung cancer. Now we have personalized medicine. So we take the tumor, look at the genetic and gene profile of that tumor, and give specific medications targeted to that genetic profile. We have immunotherapy, drugs that boost your immune system to fight lung cancer. And we have innovations in surgery. Now, 80% of early stage lung cancer is done minimally invasively. The surgery is done minimally invasively with small incisions, high definition cameras, and robotics that allow people to go home sooner and faster back to their jobs and activities of daily living. And in combination of those things.
Dr. Cook, so sorry. Where can my listeners go for more information?
Yes, go to facs.org. That's facs.org/lung cancer. The website, American College of Surgeons. There's a wealth of information there, or just talk to your doctor.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Cook. Can't wait to have you back.
Thank you very much for this invite to talk about this important subject of lung cancer.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you again so much for coming. This is such a huge topic. And, I can't wait to have him back so we could talk more about the treatments and what we could do, and having that precision medicine and that precision sort of treatment. Wonderful. Don't go away. We'll be right back. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Hey guys, it's Dr. Dahlia. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon, or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hotshot Secret, powered by science.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So around this time of year, somebody is going to tell you to choose carefully who you're spending Thanksgiving with. And they are going to be alluding to your family members' political preferences. And tell that person to shut the hell up and tell that person they're not invited. If they are putting politics over family, they're an idiot. Blood is thicker than water, and blood is thicker than a paper ballot. So those people have issues. But interestingly, the first of the, shall we say, sentiment in that arena is coming from Jimmy Kimmel's wife. She opened up on a podcast. She is Molly McNeary, the wife of Jimmy Kimmel and head writer for Jimmy Kimmel Live. And she had discussed how she grew up in a conservative household, but she has lost relationships with relatives due to their political views. She says she looks at their support of Trump being anti her husband. Really? See, this is what drives me crazy about politics, where you can't be. I can't be a Cowboys fan and also a mom and also an American. Why can't we have choices? Why can't we have preferences? But instead, if you're not with us, you're against us. And she is saying that because Trump attacks her husband, if somebody is supporting Trump, then they're anti her husband. She said that for her, politics has evolved from a Republican versus Democrat issue to one of family values, leading to anger towards family members who supported Trump. Now, Jimmy Kimmel had, said some things. This was back in September after Charlie Kirk's assassination that was inappropriate. He got suspended temporarily by ABC, then brought back. Disney described his comments as ill-timed, saying he did not intend to make light of Charlie Kirk's murder. And Jimmy Kimmel should just stick with comedy. But now we know Molly McNeary, his wife, is also head writer. Maybe she's to blame for some of his crappy monologues. And as I've said before, with these late night shows, you're supposed to be laughing. You're supposed to be seeing stars. Nobody wants to see Adam Schiff. Stephen Colbert's show ends up getting canceled. Not because of politics, but because nobody's watching. Adam Schiff is your big guest? Get Taylor Swift on your show. But nobody wants to see Adam Schiff. Come on, man. Bernie Sanders? Nobody wants to see that before they go to bed. But interesting, this is what people are using as an excuse. Now, maybe it's because they don't like their family and they want to be away from the family. Remember, Thanksgiving's coming up, and we always talk about the stress that we get in terms of in-laws and all that. Many people hate Thanksgiving. They shouldn't hate Thanksgiving per se. They like the dinner and they like all that, but the 4 or 5 days they have to be at a family member's house, no escape, the travel delays, and then, being around people they don't like. A lot of people don't like Thanksgiving. It's interesting. It's funny. In our family, we didn't like the holidays. I mean, I love Christmas and Hanukkah and all that, but because, I had to be around the family, it was not fun. If you don't like your family, it's not fun. But this is something I want us to stop. Cancel culture's starting to go away temporarily, but it'll come back after Trump leaves. Trust me, they're going to find people always find reasons to hate. I mean, anti-Semitism will sadly always be there. I mean, there's just always hate. Racism, homophobia, Islamophobia. There's always hate out there. And it's sad and it's sickening. However, the idea that if you support Trump, you're anti-me or you're anti-my husband. And I get that a lot from people. I have family members who are LGBTQ, AI plus friends, and many friends are conservative. And then you have some who are, but if you are supporting Trump, then you're anti-LGBTQ AI plus. And I go, no, I'm pro-LGBTQ AI plus. I'm also pro-women's sports. And I think someone who's transgender should compete in their own category or with biological category, just like we do with boxers. You have lightweight, middleweight, heavyweight. You have to compete with your own, in your own size and realm of that. But why am I anti you? Why can't you and I have history. Why can't we still be close? I have a lot of friends. And I'm not Republican. And I have some friends who are Republican. I have some friends who are Democrat, and I disagree with some of what they believe. And we're still friends and we're still really close. Yet when somebody tells me, but we can't be friends anymore, or your vote means you're anti-me. No. It doesn't work. You can't play that game. I had to go through a lot of soul searching when I was listening to people who were miseducated on Gaza and the Hamas attack on Israel. If somebody wanted to, ensure that Palestinians weren't dying in the war, that's logical. That's justified. That's valid. I don't want to see anybody die. But when somebody took it to, Israel's controlling Palestine. Well, no, they're not. Hamas is. Israel's doing genocide. No, they're not. So a lot of Jews thought that if you wanted Palestinians to, the war to end, that you were anti-Israel. Now, the majority of people who were saying from the river to the sea were pro-Hamas, were saying free Palestine. They were anti-Israel. But you had a lot of individuals who would come to me saying, look, how do I say this? And I go, look, you're not being anti-Israel. If one, you never wanted the war to happen. Two, you want the hostages back. Three, you want the hostages to come home so that the war can end. I think that's a very non-anti-Semitic, very humanistic, pro-Palestine, pro-Israel thought. That's fine. But unfortunately, people do want to generalize and they want to be anti-something. And so, I'm not anti-Jimmy Kimmel. I think his show really needs to revamp the writing. Jimmy Kimmel went to I think he was at UNLV when I went to UNLV. And so, he's a Nevadan. He a fellow rebel. And he can be funny. I thought the Man Show was really funny. And he can do comedy. But sitting there acting like you're a victim against Trump and all you're doing is, complaining about Trump and all that, that's not funny. I don't watch your show. It's not funny. But if the wife is throwing away family members who supported her, who gave birth to her, who is there to give a kidney because they want to vote for border security, for a better economy, for somebody who is going to bring peace to the Middle East and to hopefully Ukraine and Taiwan and all that, that's pretty selfish. I think a lot of people are selfish and they want to make it about themselves. And it's not about you. What is better for the country? When our young men and women had to go to war during drafts, although they usually drafted the men, but still, right? I mean, people had to give up their child, but it was for the country. We had a lot of less selfishness back then. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away. All right. We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. And big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So as you know, I suffer from migraines. It was horrible. I mean, I could not even describe that pain. I think kidney stone pain was less than some of the migraine pain I'm having. And there's a lot of different types of headaches. Sometimes we, call it a migraine, but there's other types of headaches. We got cluster headaches, we got cervicogenic headaches, and there's not a lot of treatment options available, especially for the very common cluster headache. Now, we do have a lot of medications for migraine, but it's not a one-size-fits-all. Approximately 43 million Americans are living. Now, there is a fantastic injection. It's the first and only FDA-approved dihydroergotamine, DHE auto-injector for the acute treatment of migraine with or without aura and the acute treatment of cluster headaches in adults who have it. And this is soon going to be available for patient use. I'm really excited about it. Now, to speak on this is Dr. Alan Rappaport, migraine specialist, who we are really, really grateful to have. He's a distinguished neurologist and professor of neurology at the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA, where I trained, and he teaches residents that he's been doing since 2006, also teaches at Cedars-Sinai Hospital, where I was born. So we're connected. Dr. Rappaport, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad I'm speaking to a Californian.
Amen to that. Absolutely. So migraines and cluster headaches. Can you talk about the difference and then why they're so difficult to treat?
Sure. Thank you. So migraine is a headache that occurs more in women than men, about 3 times more in women than men. It's probably inherited most of the time, and it occurs about 1 to 3 times a month on average. It can be much more frequent or less frequent. And during a migraine attack, a pain starts and builds over a period of a few hours, sometimes faster, and it's often on one side of the head, in the front of the head. It's a throbbing pain associated with nausea and vomiting, sometimes also light sensitivity, which really bothers people a lot, sound sensitivity, and a lot of disability. And people can't really work during a migraine. They can't really think well. They can't speak well. They'd rather lie in bed with the blinds closed and do nothing unless they get good treatment. And as you mentioned, there are a lot of treatments, but there's some problems with the treatments that we have. Most people like to take pills because it's easy, and doctors like to give pills because they don't have to describe too much. And what happens when you take a good pill for migraine? Sometimes it knocks it out and you're fine. A lot of people find that it doesn't work that well, or it works, but the headache recurs in several hours or the next day. And when that happens, I realize that the pill isn't getting down the GI tract to the area where it gets absorbed into the small bowel, and the headache will recur or not even get better. So for migraine, I would think about Brekia auto-injector for someone that doesn't stay well when they take their pills or medicines, however they take them, or doesn't get all better, because DHE, which is what's in it, dihydroergotamine, just like you said, is an ergot, which is a vasoconstrictor, and it's been around 70 years. And we know it well. It works well. I used to hospitalize patients and give them IV DHE all the time. And the trouble is, you have to give it by injection for it to work really well. It does come as a nasal spray, but I prefer an injection. And when you have a bad migraine, you can't get to the ER. You will if somebody will drive you. You can't get to my office. So to have an injection of DHE at home is something I've waited for over 10 years. It's available today. It was released just a few weeks ago. And the only thing that's really special about how to get it, you can't just go to the pharmacy and get it. You have to have your doctor or nurse prescribe it from one of two specialty pharmacies, either Walgreens Specialty Pharmacy or Sterling Specialty Pharmacy. So that's the way you have to get it. But it's really something that I'm waiting for.
Yep.
I've been waiting for.
Yeah. And like you said, also, we see a lot of migraines, affect both men and women, but predominantly women, and cluster headaches. We see them also predominantly affect men. So this also can help with cluster headaches as well.
You're absolutely right. And as you know, we have very few really good medicines for cluster. There is a triptan that you can take subcutaneously for cluster, and when it works, that's great. But I want to tell people that cluster is a little different from migraine. When it comes, it's in and around one eye. That eye turns red. It starts tearing. You may have a stuffed or running nostril on that side. And the pain is excruciatingly severe. Migraine's bad enough, as you know, but cluster is probably worse. Patients can't sit still with it or lie still. They rock back and forth. They run. They bang their head on a wall because that feels better than the pain itself. They feel as though something's pushing their eyeball out of the socket. It's just a horrible, horrible pain. The good news is it only lasts for 45 minutes to 2 or 3 hours, whereas migraine can go a day or two if you don't treat it well. The bad news is it recurs 3 or 4 times a day, and even in the middle of the night. And it happens most days for about 6 to 8 weeks, and then it goes away. And it comes back a month later. Not a month, sorry, a year later. So cluster is really tough, and it's different. And as you say, it's more men, and it's pretty rare. It's 1 million people in the country have cluster. But if you have it, you will do anything to avoid it or to treat it, and you'll go any place for it.
Absolutely. And, of course, make sure you don't self-diagnose these types of headaches. Everybody make sure you have a medical provider because, unfortunately, there's lots of other things that could mimic these headaches. But, once you are officially diagnosed with migraine or cluster, this Brekia auto-injector sounds exciting. I know we're running short on time because you're very busy, and we're so grateful to have you. What other information would you like to share with our listeners?
Great question. So there are a couple of types of people that shouldn't take Brekia auto-injector. If you're on a CYP3A4 inhibitor, like a protease inhibitor, if you got AIDS and you're taking one of those, or if you take a macrolide antibiotic for some reason, you should not take Brekia auto-injector. Don't use it if you have bad ischemic heart disease or controlled hypertension. If you're taking a triptan or an ergot for migraine, if it's working, keep doing it. If it's not working, don't take it on a day you're going to take this, because the two of them don't work well together. If you're pregnant or breastfeeding, don't take it. And if your blood pressure is very high and the doctor has trouble controlling it, don't take it. There are a few side effects I warn people about. Sometimes nausea, sometimes it'll increase your blood pressure, and some people may get heart or cerebral ischemia. It's very easy to take and very convenient. You get your anterior thigh, the front of your thigh should be available. You can use 3 in a day, although I rarely have to do that. And you can use 6 in a month.
Dr. Rappaport, I am so glad you came on. One more time, where can my listeners go for more information?
They can go to brekiya.com. That's BREKIYA.com. Or you can go to the company website. The company is Amneal. That's AMNEAL.com. And you can get more information, and it's available today.
Love it. Gosh, Dr. Rappaport, can't wait to have you back. God bless, and thank you for the segment.
Oh, you're very welcome. You did a good job. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, guys, don't go away. We'll be right back. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit, and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
On the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOC-DALI. So, interestingly, I am noticing that a lot of people are struggling, and we're going to be talking about the shutdown and other things, and we got some great news. But right now, we're kind of coming into a very stressful time again. People are going to get sick. We knew right before the holidays people would start getting sick. People are looking at their insurance premiums. There's chaos as it pertains to, the Affordable Care Act, which was chaotic to begin with and the way it was designed. And so there's a lot of anxiety about people and their health. And then on top of that, there is some confusion as it pertains to vaccines, as it pertains to what should they do. And it is a chaotic time, and that's okay. I mean, critics of this administration and people supporting this administration, I think we can all agree that it's in a reset. And so I like to be here to try to guide you all. And I know it's, not easy to, try to kind of, anticipate what you're going to need for next week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now. And so what I always tell everybody to do is take a step back. Now, I'm noticing a lot of people were not wanting to get sick, and this week they're getting sick, and they're calling up the telemedicine companies panicking, saying, I need something. I have to travel. And I worry that they're going to make the wrong decisions. And so first and foremost, I want everybody to take a deep breath. All right? It's, the holiday season is always stressful. Government stuff is always stressful. It's the shutdown was ridiculous. Should have never happened. And thank God for Democrats coming to their senses and signing the CR like they should have. But you have to make some decisions today. All right. If you're a federal worker, hopefully the money comes into your bank soon because you need that money soon. I know with their traffic controllers are going to try to pay them within the next 48 to 72 hours or 24 to 48 hours. For the rest of the federal workers, I am sure the money's going to come soon. In terms of those of us that are figuring out what to do with this next cough, cold, flu season, what to do with travel, etc. What I always do in my life is I always anticipate the worst. I always have plan B, C, and D. And every time I do that, I'm able to go through things a little less stressful. Now, when I fly, I take the shortest trip possible because I work so much that if my flight doesn't come in Sunday night at 10:30 p.m., I feel like I'm screwed. Well, then, fly back Saturday or anticipate, have plan B. Tell your boss, look, Monday, because of the travel chaos and all that, I'm anticipating there could be some problems. What should we do? I don't want to miss work Monday, but I also don't want to panic and get mad at flight attendants and be abusive like what a lot of people are doing. I want to make sure I'm calm and cool. What should be plan B if I can't get back on Monday or the following Monday, etc.? What if I get sick? Do you guys ever plan when you travel for if you're sick? I do. I'll pack the medicines I think I will need. The ibuprofen, some Zofran. If I think, let's say I'm going to get, some sort of pneumonia, I might carry an extra antibiotic or UTI. Thank God I never need them. So they're kind of old. If they're expired, you need to throw them out. But if you don't think you're going to be able to go to an urgent care or see a doctor, plan what you can with medications that you have to pack. Make sure they're in your carry-on. Don't have them in your suitcase. And then if you are going to be traveling and staying extensively somewhere else, double check with your insurance where you could go. We should be doing that in town. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. And if you asked me which hospital I could go to, I could name one on my insurance. And I think I know the hospital system well enough, so I know I could go to any of those. But is it changing now with the new plan? Do they want me to use a different hospital as the preferred? So make sure you know where to go. And then if you are going to be out of state, contact your insurance on where they want you to go if you're out of state. Don't just assume you have no coverage. You may still have coverage, but make sure you have that plan. And if you do have a plan, it's easier. We in school planned fire drills all the time. There were always fire drills. So when my house had a fire, I wasn't panicked. Watching the room burn down, part of the house burn down. I mean, my dad had to grab me and get me out of the house. I didn't have any socks and shoes on because I was really fascinated by the smoke and the fire, and I was watching it. I was like, oh, this is interesting. But because I was a dumb kid. But when you plan it out, everybody can be very relaxed and calm about it. So now, do you usually get the flu? Do you usually get COVID? If you do, you might want to consider vaccinating if that helped you. Do you usually run out of medications? Do you usually have an issue where you need to see a doctor and your doctor's not available? You might want to consider making an appointment with your doctor, even if it's just a checkup. It's really hard to get preventative medicines online. If you're like, look, I'm going on vacation, I want an antibiotic just in case. Most telemedicine companies won't do that because of all the antibiotic overprescribing. But if your doctor knows you and says, look, every time you travel, you get pneumonia, or you get a COPD exacerbation, or you get, we don't want to wait till you're sick. With telemedicine, we're here to help when you are actively sick. But if you say, look, I'm going on vacation, so I want a steroid, I want a Z-Pak, I want Cipro for a UTI, I want a steroid cream for my eczema, you're not going to be able to get that online. So make sure you reach out to your medical provider. And also, one of the biggest pieces of advice I give everybody is anticipate the unexpected. Right? What happens if you lose your job? Are you ready? Are you going to lose your insurance? And I know people are like, I don't want to think that, because if I think that, I jinx myself and then the bad luck happens. I think we should always be thinking that. What is our plan? I remember my parents in the 80s were saying that they read something saying you should have at least 3 to 6 months of your income in your savings in case you lose the job. And I remember my parents saying, we barely have a month. We don't have that. So these are just, anticipate what could happen. I know it's not a very positive, fun segment on my show. I apologize. I got good news coming up. But, if you're prepared, it's less damaging. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So, as you know, Trump is trying to make America great again, make America healthy again, make children healthy again, and now he wants to make America affordable again. So the first thing people look at is, well, what's going on with our Thanksgiving dinner? Apparently, Thanksgiving dinner is going to be 5% cheaper than it was last year. Now, egg prices are going down. A lot of parts of foods are going down. If you order beef, though, beef is going to go up. Beef prices are up. But Thanksgiving dinner about 5% cheaper. The problem is with inflation and people aren't noticing it. In fact, people are still concerned that they're paying more at the grocery store than they used to. Gas prices are down. Many states have gas in the $2 level. Where I live, still most gas stations are, Nevada has some of the highest priced gas. But when you're in Texas and the Gulf states, the gas prices are cheaper. The closer you are to the refineries and where they're pumping and oil, it's a little cheaper. But you go out west, gas prices are still high, unfortunately. But they're still way down from 2022. So that's a good sign. But, Trump wants to make America affordable again. I hope he does it. Just how? So one thing that has been looked at is the 50-year mortgage. Now, I am no financial expert, but to own a home for 50 years and to owe the bank for 50 years doesn't, to me, sound like a great deal. Interest screws you. However, that is being touted as a possible solution to get people into a house. At least then their money isn't going to rent and their money is at least going to equity. So I don't know. A 50-year mortgage means you can amortize the rest of the balance of your loan over 50 years. That makes a 30-year loan much cheaper in terms of your monthly payments and gets people into a house sooner. I'm a little nervous because I believe it was during the Clinton years where they had 0% financing so you could get into a home with no money down. And then people had the balloon payment, and that then caused the housing crisis a decade later. I want us to be very, very careful, to promise, look, you'll get into a house and then just deal with the payments later. Because the problem with politicians is they want to show what they did in their 4 years. And yeah, you could get a lot of people into homes, but what is going to happen 10 years from now? Are they going to have balloon payments? Are they not going to be able to, pay off a 50-year mortgage? And then who deals with the ramifications then? But the housing crisis that happened and I remember patients telling me that they're not even paying on their house anymore. They're just not paying. And they get to live rent-free. Nobody's kicking them out because there's too many people that need to get evicted. So one person said they were, living in their house for free for a while. And then I remember another one of my patients said, Dahlia, look at this. I got into a $500,000 home. This is where I live now. I go, that's awesome. Where are you working? He's like, same place. I go, you work at 7-Eleven. He's like, yeah. I go, well, that's awesome. But they're paying you that much to have a $500,000 home? No. But I got in with no down payment. So I'm going to live here until they kick me out. Well, that sort of attitude is not the healthiest for the economy. So I'm not exactly sure but apparently one of the ideas they have is how do we get people into a home cheaper if we can't get the home prices down? Well, you could try to build more homes, but the lumber and all that, these homes are getting more expensive and the real estate's getting more expensive. So maybe we get people into a home cheaper by lowering their monthly payment. So I see the logic. It's just I don't know if it's the best idea. And then, avian flu. Avian flu and the bird flu affected, I think, a lot of our chicken prices and egg prices. Well, that got curbed. And I know they've been talking about vaccines, and a lot of people do not want a vaccine in their poultry. They're a little nervous about consuming something. Although, we've used anti-pathogen measures in our food for a while, but many people are concerned about that. And so I don't know if that was there was a popular sentiment among farmers during the Biden years for the vaccine. But if avian flu comes back, and it's starting to in other countries, that could then affect our food prices and go up. So to make America affordable again, what does Trump need to do? All right, because we don't want empty promises, but he is a money guy. And if anybody is going to at least make a dent in these high prices, I think he has some ideas. Well, first and foremost, we got to deal with the medications and the pharmaceuticals, which he's working on. And, we're not going to pay more for what, other countries are buying for the same product. And that was brilliant. I think other presidents would have wanted to do the same. They just didn't have the cojones. Trump has that pull. He told Big Pharma, you're not charging America more than Canada, France, Italy, not happening. We pay the same. And prices are going to come down. He's also launching that Trump RX that'll allow people to get their Ozempic and Mounjaro and Wegovy and their weight loss drugs and other drugs cheaper. They think it's going to start at about $350 a month and then go down to $275. That's a lot different than $1,100 a month. So getting medical prices down allows people to shift less money towards their medications to other things. Then food. Well, let's look at what we're spending on for food. SNAP benefits. SNAP benefits should not be going to, we have, I think 1 in 5 people in D.C. are on SNAP benefits. So we have a lot of people requiring SNAP benefits. Okay, well, if they work, and if there are work requirements for healthy people that aren't, disabled, then that could help put more money into the system, not to mention, hopefully, eliminate the need for them needing the SNAP benefits. But have SNAP benefits for healthy food. If we have people eat healthy food, then maybe it'll be, we'll get it back tenfold in terms of health, economy, etc. So don't waste money on bad food. We also need to assist our farmers. The farmers got really screwed over during COVID because of the lockdown. And I don't understand why we didn't learn our lesson, especially with the senators not wanting to sign the CR with this shutdown. So you had farmers that were working on a supply and demand model, and then COVID happens. And even though they allowed marijuana dispensaries to be open, they wouldn't allow restaurants to be open. And I mean, these marijuana dispensaries, the lines were going out the door. I mean, people flood marijuana dispensaries, but they said, no, but no restaurants. Your dental office has to be closed. It made no sense. So now all these restaurants are closed. So where they had to distribute the food, nobody was buying. So we heard a lot of this food, if they couldn't shift or store it or figure out where it goes, they end up losing that money. Well, now you have all those losses. You got to make up those losses. Plus, now how much you grow the next year? When is the lockdown going to end? So these farmers got screwed over. Then they made less food because it costs money to farm, costs money to ranch, it costs money to do this. If no one's buying it, now you have fewer supply, demand goes up, now prices go up. So, and it has taken years to try to recuperate from that. We're going to see that with the airlines. Your flight next year is going to be through the roof, people, because they had to make up for what happened with the shutdown. You could say, pretty please don't do that, but no, they got bills to pay. They're going to want to make up the 43 days of lost revenue from the government shutdown and all the cancellations and the refunds they had to give. So what we need to do to make America affordable again is stop locking down, stop shutting down. All right? That's ridiculous. We need to probably revamp Obamacare. And we're looking at all these subsidies, and all that money could go to other things that could help drive prices down. Instead, that money is going to insurance companies to buy down a premium for a high deductible insurance. It just doesn't work. So looking at where we're spending and then bring the money in. I love the idea of an external revenue service. If these tariffs are bringing money in, give that money to the Americans. I understand we got to bring down the debt, but let Americans get some of these DOGE tax dollars that were wasted and some of this tariff money back into their pockets. Now, Trump does have a plan on his website. He wants to continue to tame inflation. He says breakfast basics index has gone down. 14% everyday essential index has also gone down. Toothpaste, shampoo, toilet paper. They say Americans are seeing prices decline on batteries, computers, etc., fueling wage growth. So if you feel it, great. If you don't feel it, it's not great. So we got to make America affordable again. It's going to take some work. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away. Hey guys, it's Dr. Dahlia. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So one of the things that the HHS under R.F. Kennedy Jr. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is reevaluating things that could possibly be putting our kids at risk. And they're reevaluating, is it really necessary for all children to get COVID vaccines? Now that COVID's getting milder, many people have some form of natural immunity, and we're still trying to study if there's side effects to the shots. Also, looking at what could be happening with the rising autism rates, where we're now 1 in 36 children, and is there something we're doing? He had said this when he was campaigning. Is there something that is happening in utero where the moms are inadvertently doing that could be affecting our children? Why now? Why do we have so many kids with autism or on the autism spectrum now? And so what is something that parents are doing or pregnant people are doing more than they used to do? Well, we are vaccinating pregnant women more. So that's something they're looking at. We do have a lot more radiation with our cell phones, etc. We do have higher maternal age. Women are not having babies at 18, 19 like they used to. They're having them when they're 35, 40. And yes, we do see higher rates of autism with advanced maternal age. So that's another thing to be looking at. Are they taking medications that they used to not while in pregnancy? And we used to ubiquitously use Tylenol. And then I remember in the 90s, they're like, you know what, maybe let's start holding back a little bit. Don't take too much of it. And there were early studies suggesting that there could be neurodevelopmental issues in babies, as well as urogenital issues. And study authors were suggesting we might want to rethink the ubiquitous use of Tylenol in pregnancy. Well, fast forward to 2025, Trump holds a press release with Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and says, look, Tylenol is bad. We understand, some people might really need to take it for high fevers, but, if you don't need it, don't take it. Now, I did disagree with Trump saying just bear through, the pain or the fever. I did disagree with that. I think Trump needs to leave, the medical advice to the doctors. Because a high fever in pregnancy can cause neurodevelopmental issues. However, if somebody is having a high fever and they're at home treating themselves with Tylenol, that's not advised at all. If you're pregnant and you have a high fever, we need to figure out why you have that fever. Is it pneumonia? Is it a kidney infection? Is it a infection in the uterus that could be affecting the baby? So nobody should be treating their high fever on their own anyway. A high fever in pregnancy means all hands on deck. We need to figure out what the hell is going on. Well, there's been a lot of now debate. Doctors have been going, well, I know we heard about some things, some studies saying it was bad, some studies saying it wasn't, so there is a mix. As it pertains to doctors, there's a divide. Well, there's a study that was published in the British Medical Journal saying that they reviewed studies and they found no clear link between taking acetaminophen or paracetamol. Paracetamol is the European version of acetaminophen, or what we use in Tylenol. During pregnancy, no risk, no clear link between taking it during pregnancy and a child's risk of developing autism or ADHD. Now, the researchers examined 9 systematic reviews covering 40 observational studies on paracetamol use in pregnancy and neurodevelopmental outcomes in children, and they concluded that the overall quality of evidence connecting the paracetamol to neurodevelopmental disorders is low to critically low. Now, when you see something like this, you're like, okay, whoa, that's pretty, telling. Then looks like it might be safe. But then you're like, well, wait a second. Well, which is it? When you have, I've read you some of the studies. In fact, there was a study that came out in 2021 during COVID, kind of suggesting that pregnant women might want to be a little careful, taking all this Tylenol when they have COVID. So what is it? Why can't doctors and researchers get their story straight? And how is there such a divide? Why is the science so different? Well, it depends on the study. Now, this could be a fantastic study looking at 40 observational studies. Observational meaning this is a kid with autism. Let's look and see, what their mom did and observe to see if there was possibly a risk or not. As opposed to, okay, pregnant moms, we're going to give you this and let's see what happens to your baby. We don't do those with pregnant women. So somebody could argue, well, did they also get those studies in this batch or net of studies they chose? Did those studies include the ones that said there was a pretty statistically significant link? So one is it could be also just the design of the study. Another is, as I've always said, I don't truly believe that if you take Tylenol, you're going to give your kid autism. I don't necessarily think, and I also don't necessarily think that the majority of autism cases are because of Tylenol. But what I do believe is that it's different strokes for different folks. And for some women and for some pregnancies, it's not good. There was a child, this was back in, maybe 2006. The child over Thanksgiving vacation, I forget what state this was in, got some sort of a fever and an infection. And so the doctor's office was closed. So the mom treated the child with over-the-counter ibuprofen, children's Motrin. The child went into something called a Stevens-Johnson's reaction, where her skin got very red, started to peel, and she ended up having a severe reaction from taking the Motrin. Now, children's Motrin, I have suggested it for years. I still do. I think children's Motrin has some fantastic uses and applications to help with pediatric pain, fevers, etc. But what happened to that one child is not necessarily representative of what happens to everybody. But we listen to that case and we go, wait a second here. Maybe we need to warn parents. Maybe we need to let them know that some people could be at risk. And that's kind of what needs to be done with this. If we have been seeing these studies for a while now, this is nothing new, that there's been concerns that Tylenol could cause neurodevelopmental changes. Then we do need to warn pregnant patients. Now, I don't think we need to warn them the way Trump did, saying, don't even take it. It's bad, bad, bad for you. I don't think we have to go to that degree. But why aren't we educating pregnant patients that there have been studies showing a link? Now, this, looking at 40 observational studies, said they found no link. Okay, well, that's great. That's reassuring, but I need more more guidance, because there's been multiple other studies saying there is a link. And so I'm going to be more likely to believe the links than the not links, because I need to make sure that I ensure that patients are safe. Now, then the other issue that we think about is if moms are taking, let's say, Tylenol to the degree that it could possibly affect the neurodevelopment of a child, what condition is causing them to do that? Is it chronic pain? Is it the stress of pain? Do they have a type of physiology that causes them to have bad fevers? I never had a fever in pregnancy. But if somebody does, let's say, is it that's causing the issue and not necessarily the Tylenol? So these are things we need to study. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Back on Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877 DOCDALI. So this is a question I've been getting, which is a real good question, because a lot of doctors are asking me about this too. So when you used to get strep throat as a kid, the doctor would give you an antibiotic, right? When you used to get bronchitis, a lot of doctors gave antibiotics and we're supposed to stop that because it's viral, but they'll give you an antibiotic and then they'll give you a cough syrup. Sometimes the cough syrup had codeine, sometimes it didn't. And these were kind of regimens that you got pretty used to, a Z-Pack and fries. And now people are going in to the urgent care, or they're calling telemedicine companies, and they aren't even getting the antibiotic, they're getting a steroid pack. So rather than a Z-Pack, they're getting a steroid pack. Or they have shingles, let's say, which we treat with an antiviral, an adult form of chickenpox, and their doctor is giving them steroids. Or they have strep throat. They might be given an antibiotic, but the doctor also gives them steroids. And a lot of patients are asking, what are they supposed to be doing with the steroids? And do they work or do they not? So it's interesting because I'm seeing a lot of people getting prescriptions for prednisone, Medrol dose pack. Some people love it. The Medrol dose pack is becoming the new Z-Pack. And others are kind of scared. Well, it's different strokes for different folks. But how I trained, and a lot of the older doctors trained, is you want to work with your immune system. I'm an MD, but I think very similarly as DOs do, doctors of osteopaths. And a lot of MDs still think the way I do too, where any sort of medicine we're using is supposed to be an adjunct with your body's ability to heal. We want to make sure your body helps heal. And so if you, let's say, have a fever, we don't want to squash the fever, make the fever go away, which I see parents do all the time. They go, gosh, I'm giving them Tylenol and Motrin every 3 hours, alternated one or the other, and the fever keeps coming back. Well, yeah, because the fever is trying to fight what the child has. I mean, you try to suppress your child's immune system. We don't want a high fever because they get dehydrated, they're in pain, they're lethargic, and that fever, the high fever, could cause a seizure. But why, with a low-grade fever, are you overdosing them with these medications when the fever is trying to fight the illness? So, same thing with steroids. Steroids suppress your immune system. And so when we would have patients with pneumonia, we wanted to fight the pneumonia, but we had a second fight, which was the inflammatory fluid. And so one of the first times I saw steroids being given at the same time as an antibiotic was when we would have these pneumonia cases where we didn't think just the antibiotic would work. Now, when I had pneumonia in my 20s, the antibiotic was fine. But for some people, they have so much, or the cytokine storm like we saw with COVID, where we use the steroids to calm that down. Unfortunately, with COVID, for many people, the steroids just wasn't enough. Once they went into the cytokine storm and their lungs started to fill up, they basically drowned. It was horrible. COVID death was a horrible death. But I started to see in training that we would be using steroids in the 90s in addition to antimicrobials if we thought the inflammation was worsening the condition. Now, however, we have changed our attitudes towards cough syrups with codeine for, the antitussive property. We've changed our attitudes towards pain medications because we think that there's people will become addicted, the more they use pain medications. And so we are writing steroids for your painful sore throat, for your painful cough, for your joint pain, for your back pain, and people are getting steroids now all the time. Well, that could be dangerous. It could help, but it could be dangerous. Now, I mean, when I had strep throat, a painful sore throat, I would take Tylenol or Motrin and the antibiotic, and I would get better. But there's a demand by patients where they want to feel better quicker. And the steroid may decrease that swelling of the tonsil and the pain. And people are now asking for antibiotics and steroids at the same time. And doctors are giving it. Same thing with cough and bronchitis. What great grandma used to do with schnapps, got substituted for or evolved into a cough syrup that had alcohol, and then it turned into a cough syrup with codeine. And now in medicine, they don't like to use those, so they give you steroids. The problem is that steroids are not without their risks. Steroids suppress the immune system, so some people might not get better. Steroids also, which I'm finding, can cause people with anxiety and depression to really lose it. We had a nurse who was taking, I think her doctor gave her antibiotics and a steroid, and it was a heavy Medrol dose pack. And she just starts screaming and yelling and just wigging out on people. And, I was like, are you on any new medicines? Because I didn't think she did drugs. And I go, you were sick recently. And she's like, yeah, and I go, did they give you steroids? I mean, I have seen steroids cause some people to go into psychosis. So if you have baseline anxiety and depression, you need to know about that. Prednisone, Medrol dose pack, these steroids could also cause you to be more hungry, could cause you to gain weight, can also cause your blood sugar to go up. It could also affect your GI system, where you can be more prone to ulcers and GI upset. And we do sometimes see it really slow the healing. If you're on steroids long term, it could affect your bones, thin your bones, weaken your joints, affect your heart, worsen your diabetes, mess with your eyes, causing glaucoma and cataracts, mess with your adrenals. So your adrenals make steroids. And if you're doing exogenous steroids, taking steroid medication, then your adrenal glands start to stop working because it's suppressing the body's ability to make natural corticosteroids. For children, getting frequent steroids for asthma, that could stunt their growth. So, we're coming up on cough and cold season, and many people are going to be asking to suppress their cough or something for their throat pain. I like using the lozenges with benzocaine. Everything has their risks, but an oral steroid, might not always be the exact thing you need and the healthiest thing you need. So definitely talk to your medical provider. Now, a once in a blue moon course of steroids, I don't think is that unsafe, especially if you're healthy. But if you have high blood pressure, if you have an ulcer, if you have diabetes, if you have anxiety, depression, if you have kidney disease, if you have liver disease, if you have thin bones, if you have a very vulnerable immune system, you might need to rethink that. And so, another thing too that I've noticed is whenever I do have, let's say, an allergic reaction, or I have, let's say, a lung issue where I need to take a steroid, I'm noticing that steroid doesn't work that day. I feel like the antibiotic works that day, but I don't get that feeling from the steroid. I am noticing that it takes at least 2 days to kick in. Well, so for those people calling up telemedicine, with hives all over their body or mouth swelling, they're like, well, just give me an oral steroid. I'm like, no. That could take you're in a severe reaction now. You need to go into the urgent care or ER and get a shot because this needs to, happen faster. And you might also need epinephrine. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years, stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. You know, we've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Dahlia. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.